You're watching the English newscast here on Future Television. I'm Linda Tamima. These are today's top stories. Free Patriotic Movement founder MP Michel Aoun formally swears the oath to office to become Lebanon's 13th president. FPM supporters gather across Lebanon to celebrate Aoun's election. And Iraqi troops resume a coordinated offensive towards Mosul, the last major city held by ISIL in Iraq. Lebanon finally has a new president. Free Patriotic Movement founder MP Michel Aoun formally swore the oath of office to become Lebanon's 13th head of state, more than 2 years after a power void drained the country's institutions and its economy. Yumna Naufal reports.
Lebanon's parliamentarians elected founder of the Free Patriotic Movement MP Michel Aoun President of the Republic of Lebanon, after a long-time vacuum that has been plaguing the country since May 2014, when the term of the previous president ended. 83 deputies out of 127 voted for Aoun in the second round, when the first round failed to secure him a 2/3 majority winning vote. In the first round, 84 deputies voted for Aoun, while 36 voted with a blank paper, and 6 ballot papers were cancelled. After 4 rounds of voting, including 2 unexpected repeat votes, Aoun won support from 83 lawmakers, easily clearing the 50% plus 1 majority required. Lawmakers convened at noon for their 46th attempt to elect a president, but the first expected to actually produce a result. Ambassadors and diplomats from different countries, including Syrian ambassador to Lebanon Ali Abdel Karim Ali, attended the meeting. Supporters of Michel Aoun gathered in the Lebanese capital ahead of a parliament session expected to elect him president and end a political stalemate of more than 2 years. Security was tight around the parliament and Beirut's Martyr Square, where supporters of Aoun's Free Patriotic Movement dressed in their trademark orange, and they have been gathering there for days. The 81-year-old former general has waited for the presidency, and his candidacy was backed by the Hezbollah movement, his ally since the surprise rapprochement in 2006. But the key to clinching the post has been the shock support of 2 of his greatest rivals, Samir Jaja, the leader of the Christian Lebanese forces, and Sunni former Prime Minister Saad Hariri. Hariri described his endorsement of Aoun as necessary to protect Lebanon, protect the political system, protect the state, and protect the Lebanese people. In the Jdeidi suburb of Beirut, dozens of supporters dressed in orange waved pictures of the stern-looking Aoun as his party's anthems blared from loudspeakers. His supporters, like him, had been waiting for the moment where they could finally raise their flags high and claim their orange party had won the top post in the nation.
While reciting his oath, the new president said political stability could only be secured by respecting the national pact, the constitution and the laws through true national partnership that is the core of our system. He called for the full implementation of Lebanon's national charter without selectivity or discrimination and to develop it as needed. Aoun stressed the need to dissociate Lebanon from the conflict surrounding it and respect the Arab League bylaws. Turning to the conflict with Israel, Aoun said he will exert all necessary efforts to free the remaining occupied land and to protect Lebanon from an enemy that is still threatening our resources and water. He also said Lebanon's battle against terrorism will continue with preemptive strikes until it is eliminated. Turning to the issue of Syrian refugees, Aoun said he hoped the displaced will quickly return to their homeland and abstain from turning the country's refugee camps into security hubs. Parliament Speaker Nabih Berri has expressed hope that the era of the newly elected president Michel Aoun will turn a new page in the history of Lebanon. In his speech in Parliament, Berri said the presidential crisis had inflicted deep losses on Lebanon, seeing the priority for a new modern electoral law that can only be achieved with proportional representation. Your election should be the start and not the end, the speaker said, expressing the parliament's readiness to extend the hand to rise in Lebanon. Berri thanked the parliament and the cabinet of Prime Minister Tamam Slam that he said had to endure until today's election. Whether we support him or not, there is no denying that general turned politician and now President Michel Aoun has been a central yet controversial figure in Lebanon's modern history. More details in this report.
After 26 years of wait, FPM leader Michel Aoun is elected as President of the Republic of Lebanon. He had left in 1990 to France in exile. Known for his tough and unyielding stances on crucial issues such as the country's national unity and sovereignty, as well as his fierce struggle for Christian rights in the public administration, Aoun, in the eyes of his supporters, symbolizes the fight for freedom and independence. But in the eyes of his critics, Aoun will stop at nothing to gain power, and he has always sparked a nationwide controversy over the means he uses to achieve his political goals, at the top of which is his long-cherished dream of being elected president. Born in the southern Beirut suburb of Har Tehreek on February 18, 1933, Aoun, a Maronite Christian, finished his secondary education at the Collège des Frères in Fenish-Shabik and enrolled in the military academy as a cadet officer in 1955. 3 years later, he graduated as an artillery officer in the Lebanese army. Following a series of military promotions, he was appointed an army commander in 1984. Aoun gained notoriety when he headed a military transitional government between 1988 and 1990, during which he launched 2 unsuccessful but deadly wars against the Syrian army in Lebanon and the Lebanese forces militia that resulted in the death of thousands of Lebanese and Syrian soldiers, militiamen and civilians. Even when he went into self-imposed exile in France between 1991 and 2005, Aoun championed calls for Syria's pullout from Lebanon by working with some U.S. congressmen on enacting an anti-Syria legislation, the 2003 Syria Accountability and Lebanese Sovereignty Restoration Act. Aoun stayed in France for 14 years before returning to Lebanon in May 2005, a few weeks after Syria withdrew its army from Lebanon under local and international pressure. He won the landslide victory in Christian areas in general elections held merely weeks after his return. Since his return to Lebanon from France, Aoun formed some unusual alliances with pro-Syrian parties that seemed odd for a man who had fought the Syrians. In 2006, he signed a memorandum of understanding with Hezbollah leader Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah, forging a major political alliance that has endured ever since. And despite a bloody history with the regime of the late Syrian President Hafez al-Assad, father of the current President Bashar al-Assad, Aoun visited Syria in 2009 on a fence-mending trip and was the guest of the Syrian leader for a few days. After all these years, in a televised speech on October 16th of 2016, addressing an FPM rally to commemorate his ejection from Abda Palace in 1990, Aoun finally adopted a conciliatory tone toward his political opponents, namely the Future movement and its March 14 allies, stressing that respecting the Constitution and the country's equal power sharing formula between Christians and Muslims is the key to building a proper state.
Iraqi troops have resumed a coordinated offensive towards Mosul, the last major city held by ISIL in Iraq, targeting the eastern bank of the Tigris River that divides the city. Army units had paused their advance last week after they made ground quicker than forces on other fronts to allow them to close the gap and get closer to the city. A statement said 5 villages were retaken from ISIL north of Mosul, where Peshmerga fighters are also being deployed. This marks the end of our bulletin for today. Now for a reminder of our headlines. FPM founder MP Michel Aoun formally swears the oath of office to become Lebanon's 13th president. Free Patriotic Movement supporters gather across Lebanon to celebrate Aoun's election. And Iraqi troops resume a coordinated offensive towards Mosul, the last major city held by ISIL in Iraq. Those are your top stories for this Monday. I'm Linda Tamimina. Thank you all for watching.